Hi, everyone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Caitlin. I'm a holistic nutrition consultant and the author of a blog called grassfedgirl.com. We're so excited today. We have Jen Geisert. She is a physical therapist. Her Instagram is delighted to meet you. And so it's at delighted to meet you. She has been struggling and conquering her psoriasis for many years now, and she has used the carnivore diet. So she's going to tell us her story and share some motivation and tips and tricks with you. So stay all the way to the end to hear everything she has to say about healing her psoriasis with carnivore. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, tell us what happened, how you got into carnivore and, with like your approach from standard American diet over to carnivore and dealing with like the conventional medical system to kind of taking things in your own hands.
Well, it all started when I was 7 years old. That's when I was first diagnosed with psoriasis. And up until I was about 35, it just really kind of got worse and worse and worse over the years. And, all my childhood, I spent my life being covered in ointments and creams and tar and all kinds of things my mom would put all over me. And, growing up in middle school, we'd have our PE uniforms and I would have to wear pantyhose under my shorts because I was so embarrassed that my skin on my legs was so bad. But it would it would be really bad in the winter and then kind of do better in the summer when I got sunlight. So it was still manageable. But then in my 20s and especially 30s, it got really, really bad to the point that I finally agreed to go on some higher powered medications. I first went on an oral pill that completely cleared my skin for about 3 months, and then it just completely came back. And then I had had a taste of what clear skin felt like. So then I was willing to do the even more powerful drugs. So I went on immunosuppressant injection. And again, my skin got completely clear. But with that came a whole bunch of health problems. It started with a chronic sore throat that I had for 6 months solid from the moment I went on that medication. And then it turned out after 6 months that I had strep throat that could not be cured by any antibiotic, basically. And during the time I was on a bunch of antibiotics, my skin broke out in this crazy rash that was not psoriasis, but was actually vasculitis. And it was just a big mess. But I ended up having to go on IV antibiotics for the strep throat and then doing a bunch of ointments and stuff for the vasculitis. And then it finally got better. I felt like my life was kind of back to normal. My skin was, sorry, I don't know if you can hear that motorcycle driving by. It's really
Yeah.
loud. Okay. I'll just pick up where I left off. My skin was clear. I was feeling good. I was still on that immunosuppressant injection. And then 6 months later, I had the worst psoriasis by a million that I'd ever had from way before when I was on an immunosuppressant injection. So I was just desperate at that point for anything that would help me. And I had been to so many doctors throughout the year with all the medical issues I had that year. No one was really able to help me. Now I'm coming back to these same doctors with my terrible psoriasis. Again, nobody can really help me. Nobody has any idea what to do. So I went to a naturopath and he did a bunch of tests of my stool and my blood and all kinds of things, and honestly didn't find much. He prescribed several supplements and none of that did anything really. But he had a nutritionist in his office that just happened to tell me about the carnivore diet. I think because she was experimenting with it herself. So she told me about it, and I went home that day and learned about people like Michaela Peterson and Kelly Hogan, and immediately felt like this is weird, but this could be the answer for me. And long story short, I started it the next day. And I had some really good success. My skin started to get a whole lot better, but I made some mistakes in doing it. Like I tried to go too hardcore all at once, basically lion diet from the beginning. And I'm a person who struggled with binge eating most of my life as well. So restricting so much so quickly I couldn't maintain it. And so after a while, I started binging again on non-carnivore foods. And at this point, my skin was more stable from having been a carnivore for a few months, but otherwise I was really struggling. So I ended up having to stop the diet. And I was, again, still on medication at this point for my psoriasis. But 6 months later, I realized, oh my gosh, when I was actually doing the carnivore diet, I was feeling great. I think that this is something I could do forever, but I need to do it differently this time. And so on February 9th of 2022, I started being a carnivore, but not so tightly. And I was all in 100% with a different mindset of, this is how I eat now. Those other things are not food for me. I will not be cheating. Like, this is just my diet. This is not temporary. This is how I eat. And so, I mean, the rest is history. I've been thriving for the last year on this diet with no cheats and no real issues, really.
Wow, that's an amazing story. I mean, what do you think when people say, like, you're not really healed, you're just, because if you go off of it, then it comes back?
Well, I think they're probably right in my case. I'm quite sure that if I went back to eating processed foods and sugar and drinking alcohol, that my skin would be a big mess again. But I mean, that's just a sign to me that I shouldn't be eating those things anyway, regardless of what my skin does. My body does not like that. And the way it shows me is through my skin. And so it's just like a built-in warning signal. I feel a little bit lucky to have that. So if people would say that that means I'm not healed, then so be it. But I'm eating healthy. My body is healthier than ever, and my skin is clear. So that's fine. And that's fine with me.
Yeah, I think those people haven't walked a mile in your shoes, like, if, especially with all the risky medicate side effects of medication, it's like, these are your choices. Some horrible medication that, could help you, but it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. So, well, that's an amazing story. And, when you have something, an outward sign telling you, and it's very motivating, whereas some people just don't have that. And so it's harder to stay on course.
Yeah, I feel like I'm lucky to have that very obvious signal to really direct me, and I don't have to guess, and I don't have to eat a certain way and then, oh, turns out you have whatever cancer that was likely caused by your diet. I won't get there because I have such a clear built-in warning signal.
That's amazing. So do you feel like now I know you started the Lion Diet in January or right at the end of the year. So how has that helped, or is it working, or do you think you can stick with it?
Well, I started it because ever since I weaned off my immunosuppressant injection, which was about 4 months ago, I did start to notice a little bit of skin sensitivity related to my diet, I think. So when I was on an immunosuppressant and a carnivore, my skin was clear and I wasn't having any issues, even if I would include dairy and all kinds of other carnivore foods like that some people have issues with. But for the last few months, it's like if I have cheese or heavy whipping cream or something like that, it seems like my skin is pretty itchy. And believe me, I am very sensitive to anything like that because I'm like, oh, is my skin going to get worse again? I'm very, very aware all the time of my skin. And so it just occurred to me that I need to tighten up a little bit. Now that I'm no longer binging. I've been a carnivore for a long time. I decided to tighten up to the Lion Diet so I can slowly add things back in, possibly dairy, but even things like chicken and pork and coffee. I want to make sure that I'm really paying close attention as I add them back in one at a time to make sure that they're not causing any issues. And if they are, then I will eliminate those completely. Dairy, on the other hand, I feel already so positive that it is negatively affecting me. Plus, I'm pretty addicted to it. So I don't know that I will even add any coffee back or any dairy back in. If I do, it'll just be sparingly, maybe butter, maybe other dairy products very infrequently, but I just don't know that it's even going to be worth it for me. But overall, doing the Lion Diet for the last 3 weeks so far has been really, really good for many reasons. One, I'm no longer having that itching and those kind of skin sensitivities that I felt like I was having before. So I definitely believe there was something in my diet before that was affecting me, and I will figure out exactly what that is as I add things back. But I feel great. I have had to experiment a little bit with cooking other kinds of foods that I normally don't have, and that's been kind of a fun exploration. And I could stay on this diet, the lion diet, forever if I had to. I'm pretty satisfied, honestly. But there are things that I'm looking forward to adding back, like eggs if I can, and bacon for sure. And I really do want to add coffee. So I know that's technically not carnivore, but I would like to be a carnivore who drinks coffee. So that will be the first thing that I add back, probably right around the beginning of February.
Oh yeah. I did all beef with coffee, but no butter, nothing, just coffee for several times, but like for a month, I would just be able to do it for a month and it would work. I would lose weight like really well when I did it, but I mean that's not your primary motivation, is it?
Well, it hasn't been. My motivation has absolutely been healing, but now that that's happened, I do want to focus this year on some weight loss, specifically like physique and fitness. But that for me will include a little bit of weight loss too. So I think having cut out dairy, especially, will probably help me toward that goal.
Yeah. And I know you're really into, you know, muscles and how they work and all that stuff. So that probably goes along with your work.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, yeah, well, when I did it, it was very helpful, but the main thing was eggs was the hardest thing for me because like if I was out, then I couldn't go through the drive-through and get like some eggs or some, McDonald's has those egg rounds and like they don't have hamburgers until 10:30 and you're like, dude.
Yeah, I think eggs and coffee are both very social foods. It's really difficult to go to breakfast with someone or to go out for a drink or whatever if you're not drinking coffee or eating eggs, because those are the things you can pretty much get everywhere. So that's pretty tough.
And chicken wings. I love chicken wings. And like that's something you can eat at a lot of places and that's gone. It's like so and my husband is a big fish. He loves fish, like shrimp and all that. I love it too, but I like it less since I started carnivore. I'm just like, oh, that's like an appetizer. But so like we're not being able to eat that with him is kind of a bummer, but so do you think this has affected like your social life as far as before when you had all the psoriasis and then even now, how has it affected like you're dealing with family, friends, coworkers, dating?
Well, I've been doing all of those things, so I've experienced them all, that's for sure. When I very first started the carnivore diet, I had a boyfriend who really struggled because when I started dating him, I was the girl who would eat junk food with him and drink alcohol on the weekends. And so to then suddenly go to basically the lion diet in a split second, it was really, really hard for him. And also my skin was a mess. So it was a lot to ask for a boyfriend, and we are no longer together, not really for those reasons, but that did not help. But other than that one situation, I've only had positive experiences. My family is very accepting, my friends, my coworkers. I've been on multiple dates as a carnivore, and I just tell them either before the date or on the date, I tell them, how I eat, and they're very accepting of it. Either that or they're just putting their best foot forward on a first date. I don't know. But it's been fine. In fact, my coworkers have been the best. I actually recently transitioned from working full-time to part-time, and they threw basically a going away party for me because I'm going to be working weekends now. They won't see me much. And the whole potluck was just meat.
Oh
And
wow.
I know, isn't that so thoughtful? And then this weekend I worked, and there was a note on the break room that was announcing a get together that they're going to have this week. And it said something like fun Friday with friends at 5:45, something about fries. It's all F's, right? And then in parentheses, it was like, and meat cookies for carnivores. So I just felt like that was like my personal invitation, and it was so sweet that they thought of me. So I also, in the last year, I went on a trip a month. So I went to multiple all-inclusive resorts and all kinds of places. So I learned how to eat carnivore in those situations. And there was one situation where I couldn't. It was a wedding and the food was pre-plated. There was nothing I could do. So I literally just snuck away during the meal and then came back after. And that was awkward, but there's always something you can do. You can stay carnivore, even if that means not eating, if it means asking for special accommodations, like it can be done for sure.
And I mean, the one good thing is your blood sugar is more regulated. So if you can wait an hour or two if you need to eat, like you're not freaking out. Like, I used to lose my mind if I didn't eat, every 3 or 4 hours, I would just have a meltdown. So that helps too, right?
Right. No more hangry episodes.
So I know you've toyed around with the high fat carnivore.
I have. So I became carnivore in February. In September, so 5-6 months later, I started hearing a lot about high fat carnivore, and I started doing that around early September, partly because I wanted to lose some weight, but mostly because I kept hearing about the benefits from the immune system perspective. And that was right around when I was planning to wean off my medication, my immunosuppressant injection. So from early September till basically now, I have been high fat carnivore, most 80% or so of my calories coming from fat and 20% from protein. And I just now switched that up. I have not even talked about this with anybody yet. But I'm doing Maria Emmerich's course, which is all about keto and carnivore and sort of the biochemistry of it and how to educate other people and think kind of how to coach people really in that realm. And so I'm doing really what she's suggesting, which is completely different than high fat carnivore and really different than anything I've ever done. Basically, they want you to eat a certain amount of protein, which is 80% of your lean body mass. So for me, it's about 120 grams of protein minimum. I go up sometimes to more like 150 grams a day.
Yeah.
And my fat grams, 85. It's really low. So it's like 60% fat, maybe even closer to 50%. And it's hard. I've only been doing this for 3 days, but I've been having to really closely track my food and really cut back on fat. Which I grew to love so much fat, but I was definitely not losing weight. So I know some people do lose weight on a high fat diet, and doing what I'm doing now, it's pretty low calorie, lower than probably I would recommend to most people.
Macros and calories.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's if you're keeping your fat that low, the calories are automatically low. So to be clear about that, I mean, I'm eating like 12 to 1400 calories a day, which I know sounds crazy, but I'm kind of buying into the theory of it a little bit, and I want to see how this goes. Which the theory is that if you're fat adapted, you're in ketosis, you're fat adapted, your body is no longer using glucose as fuel, it uses fat, then it will either use the fat that you eat or it will use the fat on your body. And so let's say I'm eating 1200 calories in a day. That's not much. But if my body is burning fat, there's like an endless number of calories for it to be eating in my body too. And so, that's all theory. We'll see in practice how that works. Like if this makes me want to binge or cheat on carnivore in any way, or I'm having any negative effects, then I would not continue this. But it's been a few days and it's actually been going pretty well. So I feel like I do this a lot. I'm kind of a guinea pig for things like this. And then I share it with other people how it went so they can either do it or not do it. And that's kind of where I am with this right now too.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that sounds more like a Weight Watchers diet, which I definitely did for about a bazillion years. So that kind of makes my skin crawl. But yeah, maybe for a little while you could try it.
So I completely hear you on that. And I also did Weight Watchers and I struggled with so many different diets. And as you know, I was binging forever. But the difference is the things I was eating then were simple carbs, processed foods, crap food, not real food. So now this is a lot of work with tracking and measuring my food. I would not recommend it to new carnivores at all. Like new carnivores need to just eat the food, enjoy it, love it, and get unaddicted from all the processed foods. But a year in now, having had all this healing, and now one of my main goals is more fitness and weight loss, I'm willing to do a little bit more of the specific details like tracking and whatnot. And it still baffles my mind to be eating so few calories, but I'm just kind of trying to go with the theoretical perspective here and see if it really is going to work without me being super hungry. Like I'm still skeptical, we'll say, but we'll see.
Yeah, I would just be afraid that that would push me into a binge, from being like, I just can't do this, and like freak out. And also, like, I feel like a lot of people come into carnivore with a very nutrient deficient. So doing that might, I mean, you did it for a year. I've done it for 4 years. But in the middle, I had a baby. So then I got nutrient deficient again. So it's like, I wonder, I think you have to, like you said, don't do it right away. Do it after you can play around with stuff. Once you're, like you said, fully fat adapted. And then, and I feel like there is a period of time you just need to eat all the nutrients that you are missing out on from all the years of eating too many carbs and eating simple sugars and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, and you're doing it within a program. And, when I was in nutrition school, I did everything that, came down the pike. I wanted to try it all. And that was really fun, to be a guinea pig. So I can see, why you would want to try that. And so what do you see yourself doing, long term with carnivore and, you know, knowing you have binge eating in your background, and, just tell us about your long-term outlook.
As far as my diet, I don't see myself not being a carnivore. I see myself in my independent living facility in my 90s eating the meat because I'll have all my own teeth. I can chew it. Hopefully I will have access to all the nutrition, all the healthy meats that I want. But ideally, I will do this kind of lower fat, lower calorie thing for a couple of months. It shouldn't take me that long to reach my goal weight, and then add fat back in. That's the idea, because at that point you don't want to continue burning your body fat. I mean, I don't want to like lose all my boobs and stuff. I want to still look like a woman. So I want to stop that burning fat at some point. So, I mean, I will be looking forward to that day for sure, because I've grown to love fat trimmings. So yeah, long term, even just in a couple months, my expectation is my diet will be mostly meat, quite a bit of fat, and a little bit of other things like coffee and eggs, and well, that's probably about it. But I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah, well, that's fun. I mean, it's fun to try different approaches and, tell people about them. And I've definitely done that on this channel for many years. And, but I feel like anything you do now where you're eating a lot of protein, you're eating adequate fat, is much more safe than the old, yo-yo diets and binge, different, just, you're on, you're off, you're on, you're off. It's kind of bad for, definitely messed up my thyroid doing all that, all those diets and stuff when I was a kid and all the way up, and definitely too much tofu, which I've told you about. So what would you tell other people who are maybe wanting to try carnivore this year? It's World Carnivore Month. What would you tell them just to get them motivated and get started?
Well, don't pay attention to any of these details we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes. It's too much for a new carnivore. I would say a few things. Know why you want to even do this. If you don't have a pretty strong reason why you even want to try, then it's going to be hard to stick to just for even a few days, because the first few days are the hardest. That's when you're going to have the most cravings and you don't know what to eat. So if you know, I'm doing this because I want to live longer for my kids, or I want to be able to actually get up and chase them, or I want to get off my medications, those are strong whys, versus I want to be able to fit into a smaller pair of jeans. That may not hold up. So have your why. Go to the grocery store and get like a week's worth of all your favorite animal foods. It can be bacon and cheese and pork rinds and steaks. I mean, anything that sounds good to you. In my opinion, those are all fair game. Anything that comes from an animal, with the exception of honey, which is a completely different thing in my mind, is on the agenda. So yeah, get a week's worth of food. And then when you're hungry, eat it. Don't worry about what time, how frequently you're eating, how much you're eating. Like you're not going to likely binge on carnivore foods when you're first starting because they're so satiating. You're going to feel full. It's not like eating pizza where you could literally eat 14 pieces. It's completely different when it's meat. And so, yeah, just don't get bogged down in the details. Just enjoy it. And don't feel like you have to even talk about it if you don't want to. That's awkward at first. And so if that's not something you want to get into, it can just be your thing or something you talk about with the people in your house that know about it. And after maybe 3-ish months, that's when I feel like you now are no longer addicted to all those other processed foods and sugar and crap. And you're going to be getting really pretty clear signals from your body about what it wants, if it wants more fat or less fat or salt or certain kinds of food. Like you're going to actually be more in tune with your body to know that. And so then you can start making changes when it comes to cutting out certain foods or fasting, mealtime windows or macros or calories. Like then start focusing on that. But trying to do all that at the beginning is too much. Most likely, I think will lead most people to actually just fail and not succeed on the carnivore diet at all. And then they won't be able to stick with it. And that was basically the issue that I had when I very first started. So learn from my mistake.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to cut out everything at first. Like, I mean, I went gluten-free, I'm talking about years ago, and that was like a big step. And then, then lowering carbs over time. And you have to know yourself. Are you kind of an all-in, rip off the Band-Aid, or are you like somebody who goes kind of in stages? And you have to figure that out. Like, first you could cut out all white foods or something like that. If it's just overwhelming, you don't have to do it full, lock, stock, and barrel. So, well, that's awesome. We'll tell everybody. So are you looking to go start coaching people, or are you what is your plans with your Instagram? She's very active, does a lot of reels and all that stuff.
Yeah, so I'm still kind of in the process of figuring out what my best place is in this space. I definitely do want to do something to help other people. And I've gone part-time at my job so that I can spend more time on building this platform because I want it to grow as big as possible and truly to be able to help as many people as possible. What I'm doing right now is starting in February, I'm going to be in a group with some carnivores and some are not. Some are like ancestral or keto or other things kind of in the same space, but not totally strict carnivore. And the 8 of us are going to be offering group coaching. It's in the Mighty Network, which is an app. And frankly, I'm not even sure the words to say yet, but by the end of the month, I will have links to this on my page. Because it's a great community and you can actually join the community for free. There's hundreds of people in it and there's recipes and success stories and workout stuff. But then if you want that more one-on-one attention with multiple coaches that all come from different approaches and different backgrounds, then you can join monthly challenges, which are paid, and have all this access to really awesome people. So stay tuned for that and I'll have more information on that soon.
All right. Well, tell everybody your Instagram again and, tell them you do a lot of lives and all that.
Yeah, I do weekly live Q&As. So that's a great place to be if you have questions. My Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube is Delighted to Meet You, MEAT. And Instagram's the best place because I'm active every day, all day over there, basically.
Well, awesome. Well, I know this video is going to help a lot of people, and you guys, I'll put the link to Jen's Instagram down below so you can follow her. Thanks so much. Please leave a comment, share this video with a friend who might help, and see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.